More about diversity in the media. We are joined by Ava Thompson Greenwell. She's a journalism professor at Northwestern and also author of Ladies Leading, the Black Women Who Control Television News. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Lourdes. Thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you. Great to have you. For those of us in media, we've talked about this for a long time, but is it an issue in Chicago? Is it an issue nationwide? How big of an issue is it?
Absolutely. It's an issue in Chicago. It's an issue in Springfield. It's an issue in Peoria. It's an issue all over the United States. And I think if you look at the journalism organizations that are keeping track of the numbers, they will tell you certainly that there has been progress, but there has also been some backsliding. And that's one of the reasons why I think this issue is so important. And I was really pleased to see the mayor highlight it.
Well, the statistics really don't lie. And to your point, I would ask, did you feel that her decision to make those availabilities the way she did, was that the right way to address the lack of diversity in the media here in Chicago?
Well, I'm not sure if it was the right way necessarily. However, I really saw it as a one-time issue to really raise awareness about the city of Chicago. You know, we have a city that is majority Black and brown, yet the question is, do our newsrooms reflect that? And so given that we've been talking about systemic racism in policing, in medicine, in housing, and in all these places, we really cannot avoid talking about systemic racism in the news media. And that means it's time for newsrooms to continue to turn the mirror on themselves. And I think we have to do that because I'm training the next generation of journalists to come into those newsrooms. And so it's really important that we talk about this issue. And I think, you know, to the point, I know some people have been critical of the mayor's decision. It certainly is getting attention. I think it was a bold move, and I think it was bold on purpose because we wouldn't be talking about it now had it not been bold. But I really urge people to read the entire letter that she wrote, because she's really talking not just about reporters of color, but also managers of color. And that's what my book focuses on, is what is the experience of Black and brown managers? Are they getting opportunities to be the lead person in the newsroom? And when they are getting those opportunities, many of them are still experiencing subtle forms of racism, which makes it more difficult for them to operate. And they do make a difference in those newsrooms, having those voices there.
Okay, at the start of this interview, you said that newsrooms, many newsrooms are doing something about it, but you also said that some of them are backsliding. And I want you to explain what you mean by that.
So there are all kinds of surveys, AS&E, which focuses mostly on print, and then there's the RTDNA, which focuses mostly on broadcast. And they often do annual surveys of who the people are of color in newsrooms, both as rank and file as well as managers. And when they do those surveys year after year, what we find is some years there's incremental increases, some years there's incremental decreases. And so that's what I mean by some backsliding. There isn't this consistent trajectory forward. And I think that's what many of us would like to see, is a trajectory forward that maintains itself and doesn't backslide.
We just have a few seconds left, but if you look at the comments on social media, there's an awful lot of pushback, a lot of anger from people. I don't know if it plays along racial lines, but a lot of people who did not understand and felt like that this was in and of itself sort of an act of racism. Can you explain your position, how you would counter people who might have that opinion?
Yeah, again, I saw this really as a one-time thing where she is really highlighting this need for change. And I think had she not done something bold, then it would have been just another press release. But clearly, it developed into something much greater than that. And I hope that it's just lasting, that this isn't just, you know, a flash in the pan as we're talking about this subject matter. I hope that newsrooms like yours, like the other news stations in this market, as well as, you know, other media, print, radio as well, really take some inventory of what they have been doing to foster more diversity in their newsrooms, but particularly in management. Because I can't emphasize enough, when we go back to the 1968 Kerner Commission report, which specifically looked at news organizations, it found that back in 1968, 1968, more than 50 years ago, newsrooms were really not doing what they needed to do to mirror the communities they were serving. And I think when we look at the numbers today in a city like Chicago that has majority Black and brown people, we can see that our newsrooms still are not completely reflective of those communities. And that's really important if we want to have more accurate coverage, more balanced coverage, and more nuanced coverage.
Okay, one day at a time. Thank you so much, Ava Thompson Greenwell. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Take care.